History will record that the 2016 presidential election ranks as the greatest upset ever. Speaking of upset, it's clear that Hillary Clinton and her supporters were not happy with the way things turned out, though the Democratic nominee was gracious in delivering her concession speech this morning. For the second time, Hillary Clinton came up short in a White House bid. And this time it could be blamed in part on what we might call the risk of the resume. Miranda Kahn has more.
That's right, J.D. Clinton has spent much of her adult life in the political realm, a realm that she has claimed gave her the experience and knowledge that it took to be the first female commander-in-chief. But this was clearly the year of the outsider. Perhaps that's what Clinton herself needed, an outsider to tell her that from the outside, looking in, much of her failure centered around one element that we frankly never saw, that is, until today.
I know how disappointed you feel because I feel it too.
Hillary Clinton's concession speech gave what many argue was her best performance throughout her campaign because it had what all the others seemed to lack.
Today we saw their humanity. You saw the pain that she has suffered in this loss.
That sense of humanity became much of the focal point throughout Clinton's campaign, with political commentators pinpointing it as one of her biggest weaknesses.
And Hillary Clinton is more robotic than anybody in the history of presidential politics. I mean, you can almost hear the beeps and the boops emanating from her mouth every time she talks.
Saturday Night Live couldn't resist mocking Secretary Clinton from seeming too mechanical and rehearsed. In fact, much of the praise Kate McKinnon received of her impression of the Democratic nominee was due in large part to her ability to showcase those vulnerabilities.
Laborers like my own human father. I mean, he was relatable, and I am also relatable.
Let me start by walking over to you just as I practiced. Right, left, plant, speak.
Impressions and gaffes like this one.
That's even why he's attacking my faith. Sigh.
Left Clinton with little choice but to acknowledge what was so apparent to everyone else.
You guys are the first to realize that I'm really not even a human being.
But fortunately for those on board the Trump train, that acknowledgement and her human side came too little, too late.
This loss hurts, but please never stop believing that fighting for what's right is worth it.
Now, Hillary did say, and this is key for those who were in support of her, that she believes that our best days are still ahead of us. She and the president also called to congratulate President-elect Donald Trump on his victory.
Thanks very much, Miranda. For more on all of this, we're pleased to be joined now by Newsmax TV political analyst Dick Morris. Dick, we really appreciate you joining us by Skype again tonight here on Newsmax Prime. And Mr. Trump, in his victory speech, spoke about the forgotten Americans last night. And our mutual friend, pollster John Zogby, wrote this earlier today, quote, Donald Trump won because he was the first serious candidate in the past 25 years to address the rage felt by the white middle class that feels it lost ground. Is that an accurate assessment from Brother Zogby?
Yeah, it's completely accurate. Given the passion and the dislike that Hillary created and stimulated in people, it's usual or comfortable to be able to say Trump won because Hillary lost, because of the negatives on Hillary, the emails, the Clinton Foundation, the corruption. But the fact is that an analysis of the data and of the trends shows that that had nothing to do with it. I believe Trump would have been just as successful against Joe Biden or Elizabeth Warren or Tim Kaine or anyone else the Democrats would pick up. Bernie Sanders might be the exception to that. But the point is that people voted for Trump, not against Hillary. When Comey announced that the investigation was on, we expected Hillary's numbers to crash. They didn't. And when he announced the investigation was now off again, we expected her to soar. She didn't. Instead, what happened was over the last 3 weeks, a sudden and rapid wildfire-like growth in Trump's support from blue-collar men. 3 weeks out, he led high school graduate whites by 16 points. Then 2 weeks out by 30 points. then 3 weeks out by 1 week out by 40 points, and he won them by 47 points. And that trend had nothing to do with growing negatives on Hillary. It had to do with Trump positives that began really with his Gettysburg speech on October 22nd, that really has to be called the turning point of the campaign.
Well, the exclamation point of the campaign came in the wee small hours of this morning. Mr. Trump with his victory speech, and again, it was a statement of affirmation. Let's look and listen to a couple of additional segments now.
I've spent my entire life in business looking at the untapped potential in projects and in people all over the world. That is now what I want to do for our country. Tremendous potential. Every single American will have the opportunity to realize his or her fullest potential. The forgotten men and women of our country will be forgotten no longer.
That was the phrase that won him high praise and becomes the rallying cry, Dick.
Yeah, I think that the phrase flyover country needs to be reconciled to the dust heap, just like the N-word. And it reflects the lack of priorities that the bicoastal elites in this country have for the average working American. But the good news, JD, is that Obama's legacy will be very easy to repeal. It'll be like erasing pencil, not erasing ink. Most of his changes were in executive orders, and what was created by the stroke of a pen can be repealed by it. The only legislatively enacted and enshrined changes are Obamacare, which is falling apart before our eyes, and they'll change with a simple majority because of parliamentary procedure that makes that possible, and they'll change that very quickly. And then Dodd-Frank that will require more serious revision. But I think that there's a great quote. The poet John Keats was writing about how people would never remember him, and he was feeling very self-pitying mood. And he wrote for his obituary, "Here lies someone whose name is written in water." That's Obama's legacy.
Wow, this is bonus. Not only political analysis, but Poet's Corner. Dick, you're outdoing yourself here. Hey, one thing I need to talk to you about, you touched on Obamacare, the policy that can help unite Republicans, but what about suddenly the tweets today from the likes of Jeb Bush and John Kasich and other never-Trumpers? That message of reconciliation that Donald Trump offered last night, does it extend to those presidential candidates who refused to support him yesterday?
Well, I don't think he'll have an off with their heads mentality, but I don't think he'll have a forgive and forget mentality either. I think that Trump is going to treat Congress in very much the same way that Obama did with his own Democratic majority, where Obama sat down and said, look, this is what I want to achieve. In Trump's case, it'll be I want to repeal and replace Obamacare. Come up with a plan and make sure you have a majority behind it. You pass it and I'll sign it. And I think he'll treat it much like a CEO, delegating the work and getting it done. I think that stylistically, Trump will have a lot in common with Reagan and with Eisenhower. Delegate the task, don't focus on the details.
Well, one thing you didn't delegate, Dick, the power of the pen. Of course, you and your wife wrote Armageddon, How Trump Can Beat Hillary. Newsmax division published that book. It was the #1 selling book of the election season. In fact, on the New York Times bestseller list 12 weeks in a row. Your vital book predicted that Trump could not only win, but would win. So, Dick, the question with a minute remaining, what did you know that so many other prognosticators missed?
Well, I live outside of Washington. I'm not part of that mind meld that so distorts one's perspective. And I read polls, and I understand a lot about the heritage people are coming from. And I was blessed with that and with some insight in this. And I'm very proud to say that Trump really followed our playbook. We identified the blue-collar vote, the white vote, as the vote that he could get, and we identified the Sanders vote as the vote he could peel away. And the exit polls showed that that's exactly what happened.
Well, so you delivered the message to Trump and the rest of us in the book Armageddon. Maybe Hillary should have read it so she didn't face her own Armageddon. Dick Morris via Skype tonight. Sir, we thank you very much for your time. Now, it's obvious the voters sent a message yesterday, but did people hear it? We've got that coming up next.